Hello friends, welcome back to part 20 of my Tesla earnings forecast review series with Loki. Loki's a little tired this morning, so he might go just lay in his bed for a while. Right, Loki? Yes? Okay, but the rest of us can continue with the review of my detailed model tab in the Tesla earnings forecast that I tweeted out on August the 19th, so a few weeks ago now. And where we left off at the end of part 19 was looking through this stuff and then fixing this growth formula that tells us how much I'm expecting Tesla's year-over-year growth to be in 2022 versus 2021, about 47%. Now, Tesla might beat that. Tesla might achieve 50% growth year over year, or better, which would be awesome because that was the original guidance before the Shanghai lockdowns. So Tesla has every excuse to miss the 50% growth goal for this year, but they may still achieve it. We'll see how that goes. So what I've been talking about since video 1 of this series is Tesla Deliveries and how that's the primary driver for Tesla's earnings growth in the near future. And what this section of my detailed model tab does is show just the deliveries by model and by site. So we've looked at this before on a chart to see how it stacks up in an area chart. But what this shows is the numbers themselves. So if you're really interested in learning what I have forecast in my model for stuff like Model S versus Model X, that can be hard to see on a chart that's 900,000 vehicles tall, right? But here you can make out, Model X is still ramping up this year. And by this time next year, Model S and X ought to be stabilized at about 11,000 vehicles per quarter per model. So, 22,000 for S and X combined per quarter, or 88,000 for the year. Actually, it's summing up to almost 91,000. You can see at my bottom right-hand corner, if the resolution on your screen is good enough to make out what that number is. So that's Model S and X. You can also see all the models here for stuff like the Tesla Roadster. I do have it on here. It just doesn't happen in 22 or 23. It happens in maybe 24 and 25, so this is what I've got if you look as far out as I forecast, which is 2025 Q4. So I've got Tesla making almost 1 million vehicles per quarter run rate at the end of 2025. But they're going to get to 500,000 run rate at the end of Q1. So coming up here in just a couple of quarters from now, we're in Q3 of 2022 now. So Tesla will be at almost 500,000 vehicle per quarter run rate, or a 2 million per year annualized run rate at the end of Q4. And they will get there. Q1 of 2023 is what I expect in my forecast. So what else do I want to say? Well, for Model 3 from Fremont, this product has, leveled off pretty well for this year. I do expect there to be some additional growth next year for Model 3 at Fremont. So more like mid-60s instead of high 50s for how many thousand Model 3s Fremont will produce. Then for the Fremont Model Y, I've got that edging its way towards 70,000 next year. I think they're a little over 60,000 already and on their way to that number. So here's what I have forecast for Fremont. I believe the number that got leaked out of Tesla's internal meeting was very close to that number. I think it might have been 134,000. I had 131,775 because I am copying Troy's detail as best he can piece together the actuals after they've been reported. I do my own forecast for future quarters, but to minimize confusion, since I have to tie to the totals anyway, I just go ahead and take what Troy comes up with for what the spread was by model and by site in the actual time periods, because he does such a good job. Follow Troy if you don't already. Not sure what you're doing if you're a huge fan of Tesla forecasts and you're not following Troy Teslike. Do that. So in Shanghai, they had a bad quarter in Q2, as you can see here, and then some downtime in Q3, but should be right back up to record levels again in Q4. So 236,000 almost in Q4 would be a lot. Even in Q3, I've got them making more than they made in Q1, even with that downtime, I mean. So hopefully a strong September helps boost Shanghai production, and they can get a lot of that delivered, and that would help hit this forecast. And then going into next year, expect more good things out of Shanghai. Then I've got the Berlin Model Y ramping up next year, contributing a lot of Tesla's growth. And the Texas Model Y next year ramping up, contributing a lot of growth. Cybertruck, I have just a few deliveries, Q2 of 2023. And Semi, I've got a real slow, low ramp for. Now, maybe Tesla will surprise me and ramp up semi-production to big numbers, but I am not forecasting big numbers for the Semi for a while. Less than 1,000 per quarter until late 2024 is what I have in my forecast. Now, we can hope for better numbers than that. But here's what I have for Cybertruck, 10, 20, 40, 50, 70. So somewhere around, 75,000 per quarter, and continuing to ramp up from there to maybe a little over 100,000 per quarter, so 400,000 per year. This vehicle is going to sell pretty well in North America. I don't know how well it's going to sell internationally. It's an awfully big vehicle, so Europe seems like an unlikely place for a lot of Cybertrucks to get sold. Maybe I'm wrong about that. We'll find out as time goes by. So that's the detail by model and by site. Then below that, what I have is just the totals by model. So you can see this year, there are only 4 models being made, those 4 sexy models, and we might get a few Semi deliveries at the end of this year, and that would be it. And my check figure here is just saying, hey, I have totals here that are by model and site. If I subtract the total of each model from that, I ought to get 0. And I do. That's what check figures are good for. So, yeah, this is what's in my forecast for deliveries. And that's this section. So a handy section for you to reference if you ever want to know, hey James, what were the deliveries by model and by site over time? Tesla never confirms for us that we have it right, but this is in my model if you want to go check it out. And if you want to see what I have in the forecast for future quarters, this is kind of a handy reference table that's part of my forecast thread. So with that, I will close out this video by saying if you've enjoyed today's video, click the like button. That lets YouTube know that other people like you might enjoy watching my Tesla earnings forecast videos. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, you could go ahead and subscribe to my channel. and I will see you in the next part.